Wish we could turn back time to the good old days when the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out. Wish we could turn back time.
16 candidates were evaluated, including background checks on almost all of them, 5 of which were ultimately interviewed. Kavis Reed scored the highest across the interview group in this process. He was number 1 or number 2 in all 5 categories, and he scored as number 1 in many of the subcategories, which I just reviewed with you.
A very detailed breakdown of his hiring criteria. That was Andrew Wettenhall, director with the Montreal Alouettes, talking about the new general manager of the Owls, Kavis Reed. We'll talk some Alouettes and a little boxing with our next guest. He is from La Presse Canadienne. You can follow him at Fred Daigle on Twitter. It is Mr. Fred Daigle. How you doing, Fred?
I'm doing great. How are you, Matthew?
I'm well. Happy early New Year. This is the first time I've said Happy New Year to anybody, actually.
Oh, thank you. Same to you. It's a bit early. I'm not in Happy New Year mode yet.
Oh, all right. Well, this is our last time you and I will chat before the New Year. So,
okay.
Yeah, we're going to take, getting up at 5 a.m. Saturday and Sunday is kind of rough. So we're going to take a couple weeks off and, sleep in a little bit.
That's good. Is there any kind of year-end party for the morning show, the weekend morning show?
No, there's no budget.
In Hawaii or something?
No budget for that. Dave and I are maybe going to have some cheese and crackers after the show. I think that might be. And then Dave will get on the bus, and I'll go to the store and buy milk for the kids' cereal on the way home. So not a lot of fanfare.
That's good. It's a start.
Yeah. Big shake up, I guess, with the Alouettes this week, and wanted to get your thoughts on the hirings.
Yeah, what a week. It started with Danny Maciocia summoning the media to explain why he didn't take the job with the Alouettes. And I was really looking forward to the Alouettes presser after Danny Maciocia's one, because we had one side of the story. I really wanted to get the other one. And the side that Maciocia depicted wasn't a really nice one. They offered him Mark Whiteman's job, and we thought Mark Whiteman's job was safe. And now we learn 48 hours later that Patrick Boivin is replacing him. Kavis Reed and Jacques Chapdelaine weren't surprised. Their names, Chapdelaine has been interim coach since last year, and it was pretty much granted that he was coming back. Kavis Reed, his name surfaced in the last few weeks, and it made sense. First the Maciocia part and the Boivin and Whiteman side of the story there. This part, every time somebody leaves the Wettenhall, they leave on their own terms, but nobody's allowed to talk to them, and they don't comment it. It happened with Ray Lalonde. It happened with Jim Pop. Now it happens with Whiteman. And if I'm not mistaken, it happened with Larry Smith the same way too. So they're always in good terms with everybody, but nobody wants to talk about it. So, and I'm not sure Whiteman I don't think it was fair for him to get axed in this case. That being said, now the Alouettes are moving on, so let's move on too, and let's see what the new administration will make out of it. Kavis Reed, even though people are saying he doesn't have any experience as a general manager, he has 21 years of experience in the CFL as a player, as a coach, as a head coach. So I'm more than willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, and we'll see what's coming through there. He had an interesting answer for me when I asked. It's always a question when you talk to a CFL GM, what kind of network do you have in the States for players? And he said, forget about the U.S. networks. This league, you have 44 players, 3 of them are quarterbacks, and 21 out of the 41 others they must come from Canada. So you have to have an extensive network in Canada, because the teams that are winning in this league have good Canadian players on the field. And I thought that was an interesting point of view for a new GM. So we'll see what's coming through out of that. Free agency comes up in February, and then soon we'll be in June, and we'll see what this team looks like on the field.
We're chatting with Fred Daigle from La Presse Canadienne here on Weekend Game Plan with Matthew Ross as we talk some Montreal Alouettes, where the that's a good point about the Canadian content. You know, a lot of people look at the lack of how the play of the league as a whole has maybe dipped a little bit in terms of the excitement, the high-scoring games, and a lot of people point to the fact that there wasn't enough good Canadian content to be spread amongst 9 teams as opposed to 8 teams now that Ottawa is back in. So I like that thought from Kavis Reed. But in terms of Chapdelaine, 4-2 record, as you mentioned, down the stretch last year, were you happy to see him back?
Yeah, I was happy to see him back because I thought he deserved at least a fair shot of showing what he can do. And starting a season and hopefully concluding the season, we will be able to evaluate him more thoroughly. I mean, out of the 6 games we had, and he won 4, we will never be able to take that from him. But I don't think for the last game of the season against the Stampeders that he faced the Stampeders A team. But then again, they had to win that game. And what is it Hamilton too that they didn't start all of their regulars. So I mean, they won those games. Congratulations to them. But let's see Jacques Chapdelaine for a full season against A teams on the field, and then we'll be able to evaluate it. I think if you don't take into account what happened on the field, I think he turned things around in the locker room, and that team needed that badly. So let's hope that trend can continue this season, and they can start on better bases and have a better start of a season. That would be great. This team needs to win badly. Maybe not win a championship, but at least make the playoffs. In a 9-team league where 6 of them go to the playoffs, you can't have 3 losing seasons in a row. I don't think you can afford that in this market, especially. And this is where Patrick Boivin's job will be the toughest, making sure that people show up to the stadium and that they reach for maybe a new fan base. I don't know. Maybe they need fresh blood in the stands.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do. Just wrapping up with Fred Daigle from La Presse Canadienne here. Over to boxing. Jean Pascal gets a much-needed win last night, although looking at the highlights, it didn't seem as though he was fighting someone, it seemed more like a tune-up, right?
Yeah, it was. And this is how they advertised it from day one. Ricardo Marcelo Ramalho was replacing a guy, I forgot his name already. I don't from Eastern Europe. I'm sorry, I have a blank now. But and Pascal knew only 3 days ago that he was facing this guy, and this guy showed in the past that he has some power punches and that he can go the distance against some worthy opponents. That wasn't the case yesterday, but both Stéphane Laroche, Jean Pascal's coach, and Antonin Descaries, Interbox's president, told us, we knew we weren't facing a world champion right there, but what they wanted to establish is you have to remember that Jean Pascal and Stéphane Laroche's relation started only 3 months ago. They wanted to establish maybe a new game plan for his fight. They wanted to learn to work together, and Stéphane told us yesterday that after the first round, they didn't talk about the first round. Stéphane and Jean talked about how Jean felt and what was he seeing, what was he feeling, because Stéphane didn't know how to interact with his boxer in a real fight. So they're in a learning process. So Jean wants to come back on the ring on January 28th when Stephen Butler faces Brendan Cook at the Bell Center. And Stéphane Laroche is quite happy about that. They're back in the gym on Monday, and they know they want a tougher opponent for their next fight. But then again, Antonin Descaries and Stéphane Laroche both warned us it won't be a world champion. I mean, you can't blame the guy. Look at his last 9 fights before he fought Ramalho yesterday. he faced Sergey Kovalev twice, Bernard Hopkins twice, Lucien Boutet, Yunieski Gonzalez. I mean, the guy needs a break. He can't face world champions or former world champions every time he fights. And maybe this is something that boxing fans in Quebec tend to forget, because we've been blessed for the last few years. We've had big fights. I don't know if there's a city or a province or a state in the world where you had such big fights in such a short amount of time. So I know that Jean Pascal always likes to say that when you're fed a top sirloin and you have a regular steak coming, you don't like it, but it's still steak, and you have to go through it. And he wants to get back into world championship shape. Let's see if he can do that with Stéphane Larouche. But everybody was encouraged yesterday, and even us in the media, I think we knew that Pascal needed to dispatch the guy quickly because it wasn't a tough opponent, and that's what he did. I mean, he studied the guy for the first round, got a few good shots from Ramalho, and he didn't flinch. And as soon as the second round started, he was more and more imposing his rhythm and placing his shots. And as soon as he hit him hard, he got him. So I think that was a good, a good fresh start for Pascal. And now let's move on to tougher opponents and see if he can build up on that every time he jumps in the ring.
He is Fred Daigle, at Fred Daigle on Twitter. Fred, have a great rest of December, and we'll talk in the new year. And I guess you're late. You got to get to those pancakes for the kids this morning.
Well, everybody's up already here. It's pancake frenzy, I guess, this morning. They all want it, so I'll jump behind the oven right away.
All right. I still haven't seen an article on pancakes by you, by the way.
Well, if I can find a sideline food writing, I'll be writing on beer and pancakes and the wine and everything.
Nice. Oh, wine. Oh, okay. All right. I like that.
All right.
Merci.
Happy holidays, guys, and
Joyeuse
happy
fête,
holidays
Fred.
to your listeners. Oui, merci beaucoup à vous aussi.
All right. There you go. That's Fred Daigle.
Bye-bye.